So I want to just take a few moments to update everybody on the officer-involved shooting that we had this morning on New Scotland Avenue. But before I begin, I want to just remind everybody that this incident just happened within the last few hours, still an active investigation. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. But I felt that it was important to at least advise the public on the information that I have access to right now and the information that I'm privy to. So far, I've had an opportunity to get some preliminary information from the commanders on the scene. I've had an opportunity to review body-worn camera of this incident. And what I know so far is that early this morning, at around 12:50 a.m., the Albany Police Department's Communications Division received a 911 call from someone at a home on the 100 block of Morris Street between New Scotland Avenue and Knox Street. And the caller stated that a group was inside of the home armed with a handgun. Further information from the officers on the scene was that an individual associated with the residents climbed onto the roof and was running across rooftops. Two Albany police officers who were riding together in a marked Albany police car began to patrol around the neighborhood in an effort to locate the person running on the rooftops. And all while this was going on, we had officers who were at the original scene who were securing that scene to figure out what exactly was happening there. After a few minutes, the officers observed a man walking in the middle of New Scotland Avenue with a large dog, and they stopped the man in an attempt to investigate. As the officers exited their vehicle to speak with the man, they observed that the man was holding a knife, which he then placed against the dog's throat as he began to yell at the officers. The patrol officers made many efforts to de-escalate the situation, several times told the man to drop the weapon. It was at this time that the man released the dog and was still holding the weapon. The officers again continued with commands to drop the weapon. It was at that point that the man began to advance towards the officers. The officers again told the man to drop the weapon, to stop his movements, and the man continued moving towards the officers while holding the knife. Eventually, the man began to sprint aggressively toward one of the officers while still holding the knife. As he sprinted towards this officer, the officer continued yelling commands to stop, drop the weapon. The officer backpedaled as this man sprinted towards this officer. The officer eventually fired his weapon and struck the man several times in the torso area. The officers immediately began to render aid and flagged down an ambulance that was on New Scotland Avenue, and he was quickly transported to the emergency room at Albany Med. He is currently admitted to the hospital, and his condition is critical. The three officers who were present at the scene were also transported to Albany Med for evaluation. One of those officers was treated for a dog bite to the arm. The other two officers were not physically injured, but underwent evaluation per normal protocols. Having the opportunity to review this incident on body-worn camera, my initial assessment is that this was an appropriate use of force. From what I saw on the camera, those officers, at least that officer who fired his weapon, was under attack. This was an armed subject who was aggressively sprinting towards this officer, and this use of force was unavoidable. But of course, the investigation is ongoing. Right now, I have been in contact with the Albany County District Attorney's Office, and members of my staff have also had contact with the New York State Attorney General's Office. One of those two agencies will conduct an independent investigation of this entire incident. The Albany Police Department will conduct an internal investigation as well. Again, this is a very active and ongoing investigation. You know, we regret any types of use of force. You know, we prefer that incidents are handled without use of force. This, per my preliminary investigation, was one of those cases where the use of force was simply unavoidable. Again, I'm limited in the details that I can disclose at this point. Still an active investigation, and we still have, again, either the New York State Attorney General's office or the Albany County District Attorney's office to conduct an investigation on this as well. So I'm available to take just a few questions that you may have.
This is the kind of thing that may generate a high level of public interest. So that being said, is there any plans on your part to release the body camera footage to the public, similar to the South Station incident, to sort of clarify and give evidence as to what happened?
Yes, I'm in conversation with the Albany County District Attorney's office to ensure that when we disclose and when we show these videos publicly, that we're not breaching any protocols that they may have in terms of investigating. And also, there's still a possibility that the New York State Attorney General's office may investigate this as well. And so I want to be respectful to the investigative protocols of those agencies before I say exactly when the video will be disclosed. And the other piece of this is being respectful to the family of the person that was shot. Again, you know, none of us wants to be involved in a situation where use of force is necessary. And it's a painful experience on both sides. Obviously, the person who was shot is undergoing trauma, but that person has a family that we have to be respectful of, and we have officers who are involved in this who are undergoing a great deal of emotional trauma with something like this. And so before I disclose exactly when we'll show these videos, I've got to be respectful to those other elements involved in this.
Also procedurally, at least the officer who fired the gun is suspended for mental health reasons for now, right?
Placed on administrative leave. And so the officer is off the road at this point. We have to, number one, we have investigations that have to be completed, and before that officer is placed back on the road, we've got to complete those investigations, but also we've got to make sure that the officers are mentally and emotionally able to get back to work. But at this point, the officer is on administrative leave.
And that's the only one?
Yes.
Did either officer carry a taser that could have been used instead of shooting with a gun?
Preliminary investigation has revealed that there was perhaps the use of a taser by one of the officers at the scene. So we're still trying to sort that piece out, but it appears that at least one of the officers used a taser at the scene.
Did the officers answering the call, did they fear a possible ambush situation or anything like that?
They didn't know. They didn't know. It was the call came in simply as a person his home was broken into. He was being held at gunpoint, and he needed police assistance. So the officers had no idea what they were getting into. And so in addition to that, the officers got information that somebody from that house had run from the back and was last seen in the area where they ultimately encountered the man that was shot. And so it was not a lot was known at the very outset.
Chief, would it be accurate to say that the person who was shot was suspected of committing a burglary beforehand? Is he the person who went into the house and then ran out?
We don't know. We don't know that person's involvement with this incident. At this point, we're trying to sort that piece out.
You said something about people running on roofs. What was that again?
So when the officers arrived, they were told that people had run from the back of the house and that someone had escaped, I guess, to the roof and was running across rooftops. And so it was a fairly chaotic scene. And, you know, the officers get this information that somebody's being held at gunpoint in a home invasion, and they're getting this additional information, and they're trying to sort all of this out. And so when they encounter the man with the dog, the officers didn't know what this person's involvement was, or if the person was involved at all. But it was important with the type of information that they had to investigate, you know, what was going on there.
You said that the person who was shot is in critical, do you know if the person is considered likely?
I'm sorry.
Do you know if the person is considered likely to expire, or?
Oh, we don't know. The latest that we have is that the person is in critical condition.
Do you know if the victim had any prior involvement with law enforcement?
From what I understand, there's been some prior contacts, yes, with law enforcement. I don't have exactly what they are, but there were some prior contacts, yes.
This-
What's the status of the dog? Was the dog injured at all?
As far as I know, the dog wasn't injured, but the dog was taken into protective custody.
This
And,
does have shades of the Elazar Williams incident from a few years back.
Mhm.
Are you expecting that level of general interest with this one as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's why right now and at the very outset, I want to be open and transparent with information that I have as I get it. And right now, again, you know, it's very early on in this investigation, but I felt that it was important for me to let the public know exactly what I, as police chief in this agency, what information I have right now, and what we plan to do going forward. I plan to continue these efforts of transparency and making sure that the community is apprised of what's happening with this. You know, again, I've had an opportunity to review the body-worn camera footage from this from at least 3 different angles, and from what I've seen, the body-worn footage is very, very compelling. And from what I've seen, it supports the idea that that officer was under attack, and that the use of force in this instance was unavoidable. Again, you know, we regret any time having to use force. That's not what we wanted to do. But unfortunately, sometimes officers are put into a place where the use of force is simply unavoidable. And this is one of those cases. And so we're making sure that we get these officers the support that they need, you know, the emotional and mental, and if there's some training, coaching, that as well. But we're also, again, we're very, very respectful to the person that was shot and that person's family, because that's, you know, that creates and will cause some sort of trauma on that end. So it's a very difficult situation, but again, as I get more information, I'll share this information with the public. Thank you. Thank you.